Hey guys, greetings and salutations. I actually wanted to just jump right in and talk about the whole concept of the foot fetish, and the reason why I'm really familiar with this is because I'm actually one of those guys that really admire nice, hands and feet and stuff like that. And I thought it would be a really interesting take from somebody who has a more conservative Christian background, because I think this is not something very common in our group to really discuss or talk about. And I'm not going to get too crazy or anything like that. I really just want to talk about the concept and also my journey when it came to just my understanding of this whole concept. So first off, I do remember being fixated on one of my aunt's feet when she used to visit me, visit us. And sometimes she'd be in the kitchen cooking or something like that. And I remember as a little boy, I would just like to sit on her feet or something like that. And I didn't really understand why. I was just, and it was only her feet. I just seemed to really be fixated on. I never really understood why. I don't really remember any particular reason why, but I just remember I was fixated on her feet, and I used to just always mess with her feet, and she just laughed it off, and I never understood what was going on. And as I started to get older, I noticed that as I was going to school and stuff like that, a lot of boys would talk about sex. They would talk about different parts of a woman's body, or at least girls, and they would say, girl's chest or girl's backside and all this stuff, and sure, as a young man, I was, admiring the beauty of, young ladies, especially when I started transitioning to a teen, and I was in that preteen, area where it's like, 11, 12, and then finally 13. But I remember I was always interested in, how does the girl's feet look? I wonder how do their feet look? That was always something that was always in the back of my mind. Oh yeah, she's really pretty, but I wonder how her feet looks, And I really never understood where it came from. Was there something wrong with me? And for a long time, because I was watching a lot of responses people would do publicly about men or even women who had a fixation for feet, or they were interested in feet and stuff like that, there was always a negative response, and I never understood why. There was always people openly talking about a woman's breasts openly, and guys that are supposed to be breast men, and no one made it that a big deal. Or it seemed like somebody talking about a woman's backside or her thighs or whatever else, actual sex itself, and it seems like that was not a big deal. But for some reason, anytime somebody talked about admiring feet, that seemed to be kind of like a big deal, like it was unusual, or it was really strange to a lot of people. And then I noticed over the years, I would look at different news articles, and journalists would cover stories of guys, primarily some ladies, but a lot of guys that would literally just find opportunities to sneak into somebody's house while they're asleep just to touch their feet or something, and I always thought, I don't know, why, like that's not worth the effort of doing something like that. So I think one of the things I want to get into before I try to go back into my journey with understanding my journey with trying to understand this whole concept is there is a spectrum that I think that really needs to be discussed. In this spectrum, you have people that actually do admire feet when they are, a lady takes care of her feet, and let's say she's wearing nice heels, she's taking care of her feet, and there's this admiration for the beauty, the size, the taking care of the dead skin and scraping them off, going to either she's going to a nail salon, or maybe she's doing stuff at home, but there's an admiration for ladies that take care of that, and some of us, we do want to massage the feet, we do want to caress them, we do want to admire them. They're like a work of art to some of us. They're just beautiful. But then you have the this other side of the spectrum where it goes in areas where I would never go, and this could be the people that like to be kicked, they like to be stepped on by feet, they like to be actually abused by feet, and that arouses them and things like that. So I think it's important that we understand there's a spectrum. And so if you approach me, for example, and I'm more on this end, where it's milder compared to the other side over there, sometimes it's a little confusing for me, because people who are not really interested in the admiration behind feet or anything like that, they usually put everybody in the same category who likes feet, and usually we all don't operate the same way. There's also guys that are really aroused and appealed by feet that are quite frankly dirty. There are actual men that would not actually be interested in being sexually intimate with their wives because they have to have the feet dirty first. There are some guys that are like that, and so I don't understand that. I'm not going to say it's weird because I have my own interests, but that's something that's outside of my understanding. There are some guys, and I'm trying to really emphasize there's a spectrum, but there are some guys that prefer a woman with dirty feet. That's something that arouses them. There are also guys that appreciate a lady that, let's say for example, their wives, and they would maybe request their wives to walk with them for about 40 minutes around the house, of course with shoes, just to get the shoes sweaty so the feet can actually have some type of scent or smell, or sweat, and that for some guys that arouses them, so I'm just really emphasizing these other areas because there's a spectrum. And so if you approach somebody who likes or admires feet and nice hands as well, and they're more on the spectrum on the milder end, it's a little confusing for some of us because it's like, okay, feet is not that big of a deal. It's not like I want to be kicked and stepped on, and I will say, even on the online community, I've there's times where I'm online and somebody's wearing nice heels or something like that, and I'll say, oh man, beautiful heels, I'm write a comment, beautiful heels, your feet looks very nice. And then like there are times when maybe a lady who maybe I guess sells pictures and videos, who is a foot model, will see my comment and will privately inbox me and ask me, hey, are you interested in buying some videos and photos and stuff like that? So I know there's a big community of that, and I really didn't know that, which brings me back to the point of my story I really want to get to. Was there was a time when I was able to acquire like I said, my own laptop, and I had access to the internet because I was working. It was like I was like maybe 18 or maybe I was 19, 20, but during that time I took that opportunity to discover more about what it is that is going on with me in regards to feet. And because I never really understood what was the whole deal behind, where did this come from? Why is it that there's so many guys that, some guys are more focused on a woman's breast when it comes to physical attractiveness. Some guys on a woman's backside. Some guys have different preferences. But for me, I admire the entire, physique of a lady. I think God did a beautiful job when creating women. I'm a guy. I'm very visually sensitive, so naturally I'm going to admire the entire masterpiece of, whom a woman is. However, I just started realizing that a woman's hands and a woman's feet really just enhance my I guess their attractiveness, to me at least, So that's something that I just thought is very feminine to me. It's something that I really admire. I admire ladies that make sure their hands and feet are soft and clean, and that's just something that But online, I started taking a lot of time, and I took a few years to really just look into this. I would go online to different forums and see different guys discussing their experiences with feet. They had some guys that it was a family member that sort of, I don't know, maybe having sleepovers or something like that. And maybe they had a cousin that was visiting and always kicking them with their feet. And all of a sudden, the guy sort of developed, an interest in feet. Or maybe a guy was, I don't know, he was dating a girl and she had him massage her feet, and then all of a sudden something, I don't know, he just experienced some type of awakening where he's like, oh, hey, I like feet, I like how this feels, I love how the shape of the feet and all this kind of, other stuff. So I thought it was very interesting, but it's been a very long journey for me because I thought something essentially was wrong with me. I thought, all these other guys like these other things about a woman, and for me it was just, I was wondering, like, I love the physique of a woman, but yeah, I love a lady with nice hands, nice feet. Like, what's behind that, And so what I thought was very fascinating about this whole thing is that as I was reading through all these different stories and experiences from men primarily, and some women actually, there's women that have a fixation for feet as well, but I noticed that there was a common understanding for a lot of guys, not most, but a lot of them, that they just kept it a secret. If they were attracted to a woman and and her feet enhanced their attraction towards her, they really just kind of thought that it needed to be a secret because they felt like ashamed to even talk about it. And I remember that was a common theme. It was always like guys being ashamed. And so I remember reading a story that really stood out to me, and this is actually a very significant event to me. was I remember over the years of off and on just kind of looking into this, because I was still trying to figure out, was my brain broken, honestly. But I read a story of a guy that had a thing for feet, but he actually was, if I remember correctly, according to the story, he was married for 3 years. You know, he already dated this woman, he courted her, he was married, and he still wasn't open about his admiration for her feet. You know, I guess however her feet looked, he really thought they were beautiful. He thought that they were, very admirable. And but he never was open with her about this. So he would wait until she fell asleep, and then he would just kind of massage her feet when she was asleep, And I thought to myself when I read that, man, I do not want to ever be that person that I'm keeping it a secret. Like, this is something that's a part of me, just like other things, I enjoy motorcycles. I like, playing video games. I like, maybe learning the guitar and stuff like that. Like, this is a part of my life. I would never want to shield that from anybody, And so I noticed that for me, after reading that story, it really stood out to me, and I decided at that point that I'd be open with just talking about my admiration for feet. Now, personally, I don't really call it a foot fetish. I just call it an admiration for feet, But, I know that there are a lot of people that are outside of the group of people that admire feet, like to call it just a foot fetish. And often I like to ask people, how do you properly define that, And for example, I'll give you an example. I play my PlayStation almost, every day, or at least I use it, So, sometimes I'm listening to sermons, sometimes I'm listening to, debates or discussions and stuff like that. So I would ask, or I would challenge someone, do I have a PlayStation fetish? Because I use it every day, versus, I don't know, touching or admiring feet. Like, that's not something I have access to all the time. I'm not married, so, and I'm not dating either. So it's like I don't have access to feet. So how would we define what a foot fetish is, And also, we have to keep in mind of the spectrum, I think that it's easy when we're outside of that community to say, okay, well, all you guys just have a fetish, and it's like, okay, first off, what is that? How do you properly define that? And it's just interesting. It's very interesting. It's been a very interesting journey. One last thing I do want to say, and I'm probably going to make other videos really just addressing this, because there's so much to unpack. But one of the things I thought was really interesting was as I started to be more open about my admiration for feet, and keep in mind, not everybody's feet I like, so I think that sometimes there's a misconception that if a guy likes feet, he just likes everyone's feet. It's like, no, there's a specific taste, so let's just at least get that, established. But one of the things that I learned very early on was, in my opinion, and I want you guys to really hear what I'm saying with this, in my opinion, there are two types of people. There are people who have an admiration for feet, and there are people who have a fixation for people who have an admiration for feet. There's people who have an admiration for feet, and there's people who have a fixation on people who have an admiration for feet. So it's very strange, but I've met countless people at my church, at my job, in my family, that it seems like every opportunity they get, they have to make a joke about my interest in feet. They have to make a comment. They have to make some type of, a joke, or, they have to make some type of reference. And it's odd because I'm supposed to be the person that likes feet, and they seem to bring it up more than I do, And, just recently I had I'm a part of another podcast, Stage Clear, so check it out. And and I'll actually put the description at the bottom of this video for that podcast, and so you guys can check out what I'm doing with me and a buddy of mine. But one of the questions that we had at the very end was, hey James, do you suck toes? That was actually a question, and I'm thinking, this is an opportunity to ask a philosophical conversation, or engage with a philosophical response, get a philosophical response. This is the opportunity to ask a question that can be so in-depth, to find out about how I think about God, about dating, about relationships, politics, my ideologies about life and things like that. And the question I received was, do you suck toes? And I thought to myself, why is it that people who are, I guess, supposedly outside of this community seem to be more fixated on feet than the people that actually are supposed to be into feet? So I never understood that. and it's always ongoing. I never bring up feet. If I even know somebody who admires feet, like, I don't really care, to be honest with you. It's like, that's their business, that's their thing, enjoy, you know. But for some reason, there's a lot of people that seem to be fixated on people that have a thing for feet. So that's something I'm still trying to understand. I don't entirely understand it. I don't get it. It's very strange. I've had people at my church mention, like, oh, hey, you know, make jokes and, hey, ladies, watch out, James likes feet. It's like, is that really necessary, you know? And I'm open, you know, so I don't get, you know, I'm not bothered by it, but it is something that I'm actually trying to work through. I'm trying to understand, why does this sort of matter in a way, you know? It's just like somebody saying, hey, you know, he really likes ladies with nice ankles or nice knees, you know, or I don't know, ladies' backside or thighs or whatever. To me, it's you know, I don't really need to bring it up, you know. Who cares, you know? I mean, that's their thing. Enjoy, you know. Enjoy your wife, enjoy your relationship. You know, God created women to be enjoyed, you know, in a relationship, you know, and yeah, enjoy. But I don't really have any desire to bring any of those things up because I just don't care, to be honest with you. I don't care, you know. But yeah, I just thought that would be, that was just very interesting. But it's been a very interesting journey. And it's something that I think that I'm gonna expound on more in the future. Again, it's very unusual for a conservative Christian like myself to really discuss this. Usually people, there's some people who equate the whole foot fetish thing as a negative thing. You have other people who, you know, have, you know, accepted that this is just something that is a part of you know, life and things like that. And just like everyone has a preference for other things, and ladies as well have their own preferences, you know, so do we men, you know. So it's not really that big of a deal to me, but I think it's just important to talk about it, you know. And one of my goals, honestly, in life, other than, you know, ministering to people and talking to people about life and, you know, having these necessary discussions, is really just trying to remind people it's not really that big of a deal if somebody admires feet or not, you know. It's I feel like there's a lot of people outside of the, I'm going to say, the foot community that seems to make a big deal out of it when it's really not that big of a deal. I remember one, and I guess I'll end with this, but I remember at my last church that I was at, one of the pastors, you know, kids, and I'm going to say, you know, and he's a man, you know, he's another guy, but one of our assistant pastors at the time, you know, his son, you know, I had a very interesting relationship with this guy. And I remember, you know, he just kind of would make a big deal out of it all the time. And I kept thinking, like, why is he always bringing this up? And one time we actually said something on social media together, had an exchange. And, you know, he kind of approached me the wrong way about it, bringing it up out of nowhere. And I kind of said something that he didn't really care for. And I wasn't mean-spirited. But, you know, anybody who knows me, I'm a little psychological. So I kind of turned things around on him. Hey, guys, greetings and salutations. Just wanted to finish up this video, you know, with just an important aspect that I wanted to cover. And unfortunately, my battery died before I could really get to this last part, which I thought is really something that just needed to be implemented into this video. But obviously, we know that no one should be choosing their lifelong partners. Most certainly, I would never approve of this as well, and I'm sure God wouldn't, based on a person's feet or their hands or hair or whatever else. I think that would be ridiculous, you know. Ideally, you know, a Christian man would want a Christian woman. And even if I chose somebody that I loved and she had really nice feet, and later on, you know, let's say a year into our relationship, you know, her feet, you know, are amputated or something like that. Of course, I know as a God-fearing man that this is still my wife. Just because her feet are no longer there, you know, that doesn't make her who she is. So it's really just, I just wanted to kind of add that. I think sometimes the conversation of the whole interest in feet and stuff like that, people misinterpret the direction of what that actually means, you know. Now, I will say there are people that live in this world that they do think that way. They do think that, you know, if a person doesn't look a certain way or have certain physical attributes, that, you know, they're not valuable. Or even if somebody, you know, picks up weight or something like that, they are no longer valuable. So I don't condone that. Obviously, you know, I'm after a woman for her heart. You know, I need somebody who loves God. And, yeah, the pretty feet or whatever, that would be like the added bonus, you know. But it's not like a, you know, something that I honestly worship. Of course, only worship God. But yeah, thank you for listening to this video. Thanks for just checking it out. And yeah, thank you for being patient with me. I'm still tinkering with my editing and things like that. I'm actually getting better, so yeah. But yeah, and obviously, if you guys have any questions, I have some information on my profile, just to contact me through my Instagram and other ways as well. But yeah, feel free to leave a comment and like and subscribe. All right, peace.